Okay, so you know how I said it gets so much better? The next day, he tells me I proved myself. Because I didn't let the cops call. Now, I've heard a lot of crap from him before. Facts don't give a fuck about your feelings. Why can't you just shut the fuck up and do what you're told? Constantly finding ways to make it feel like he would sit here and tell me, you're always triggered by everything. And I always try to undermine my feelings and make it, and tell me how it didn't matter. That my feelings didn't matter, that my pain or trauma didn't matter. And instead of making me feel better about what I went through, he made me feel ashamed of what I went through with my biological father and my ex-husband. And then, of course, before he beat me, when I told him he was being abusive, he would tell me, I've not put my hands on you. I've not put my hands on you. And, of course, he did. I always question who's crazier in this situation. Who's more mental, me or him? Because the next day, he sat in the room almost an entire day. So it's probably 2 days later. Because the next day afterwards, he sat in the room. He didn't want to talk to anybody. Didn't want anything to do with anybody. He was just completely shut out. And then he called me in the next day after that. So, like I said, I think it was 2 days later. Started talking to me. Tell me how I'm the one, and he realizes I'm the one, and he would never want to hurt me again. And dude grabs the Bible, tells me to come with him. I'm like, what's wrong? What's going on? And he said, just follow me. And in this house, there's a walnut tree in the back. And after waiting 5.5 years for a fucking proposal, he finally proposes under this tree with the Bible and says, I don't have a ring, but I have a Bible, and I am promising you to God today that I will never hurt you again. I will never do you wrong again. You are the one I want to spend the rest of my life with. And like I said, I don't know who's more freaking mental, me or him, because I freaking accepted it. When we had already had a conversation previously that I was supposed to say in Kentucky while he went to Alabama. But after the abuse and the police report, there was a JC-13, which means the police had to report it to DHR in there. So he basically used that against me, and 3 weeks after the abuse, we moved. And no, he wasn't any nicer. In fact, but I told myself it was stress. We were moving, and he was being so mean to me during our move. Trust me, I beat myself up all the freaking time over how stupid I was. But I really thought it was just stress. I really thought it was just him coming off the drugs. I just thought we moved, and he'd grow, and he'd feel better with himself, and he wouldn't be mean anymore. He needed to see his life turning into something. We stayed in an extended stay for like a month. This is basically a hotel room with 4 kids by myself most of the time. I was wound up, stressed, and he was cruel beyond compare. And at one point, I remember asking him, I'm like, did you really just bring me down here so you can gather up all your family and your friends around you, build up this career, and leave me? Like, you didn't want to leave you didn't want to leave me up there with the kids because then you wouldn't have had control over the kids? Like, what was the point in bringing me? That proposal was a thing of the past at this point. I said, I don't know who's crazier, him doing it or me accepting it. As if it was not just some manipulation tactic. Sorry for getting emotional. It by no means gets better. He gets more cold and more distant. I start having more mental breakdowns because I can't handle the abuse. I can't handle the cruelty. I'm literally just begging for kindness at this point, not even the bare minimum of just being respected or being, thinking of me in the most bare minimum basic ways. I am literally just begging for kindness at this point. I have just given up everything. My home, my stability, my family, my friends, and everything that belonged to me for this man right after he just beat the crap out of me. So he starts building this empire. But, might I add, did come from my idea. It came from me encouraging him, me buying him things. The idea was my idea for him to even start asking for him to be going down this path with people. I mean, it was built off my sacrifice. Yes, he has the skill. And I noticed that skill, which is why I built it. I grew it. I put strength into it. I gave him confidence. I gave him nourishment of it. Told him how amazing he was, how smart he was, how incredibly he was. When I talked about his passion, I lit up thinking about what he was capable of, knowing what he was capable of being and doing with his career. And he's good at it. He really is. He's really, really good at it. And I encouraged him. I had pride in him. And honestly, he wouldn't have any of it if it wasn't for me being able to stay at home all the time, taking care of the kids. I didn't have a job. I wanted a job. I wanted a career. I wanted something for myself, but I gave all that up so he could build. And he, at the end of it, when we went to a couples counseling, he even said he didn't appreciate me, that I was lazy. I'd watch this dude as I'm crying and falling apart, and he'd just stare at me. Nothing. There was nothing on his face. He would just stare at me as I'm falling on the floor, just crying, begging him, please just hold me. And he's just staring. And how can that not break a person, watching the person you love the most just stare at you as they're being cruel? They say horrible and cruel things. You break down and cry, and you're literally just begging them to just hold you, to hug you, and they're just staring at you. Like, you mean nothing. Like, you're a bother to them. And I'm literally at some points telling him, if you don't love me, just tell me you don't love me, and I'll go. Like, I just need to hear it. Say it. No, I'm not going to say it. Why? Because it's not true. But it is, because this is not love. This is not okay. How am I supposed to start explaining this to my kids? It's gotten worse. How do I explain them? Because you're telling me this is love. You're telling them you love me. And this is how our kids are learning what love is. How are you not ashamed of yourself?